I think sometimes people are listening to it, sometimes people aren't listening to it.
Okay, but if
And
someone's listening to it each and every week, do you think them hearing the same valuable message is a bad thing?
no, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think
So, like, why do you fucking struggle, man?
because I want to be original, right? I always,
Okay.
I feel like everybody, we do so much stuff where you're reproducing stuff over and over and over and over, and you're just saying it all different ways. And yes, that's what life is, saying a lot of different things in a lot of the same ways, and you sound like a broken record at times. And I
But
think,
didn't you tell someone the other day when you start sounding like a broken record, that's when you know you're doing it right?
yeah, well, I said that in the context of doing a sales call, right? And how you get on this rhythm of doing a sales call a certain way, and the more you do it, the more you sound like a broken record. And if you're starting to sound like a broken record, that means you're doing something right, because you're getting the opportunities to get in front of the people, you're getting the opportunities to talk and to pitch and to do your job and make a sale. And if you repetition is good, right? Repetition is necessary, especially when you're learning new things. Learning new things is so fucking rough. It's not like, especially, you know, when you're a kid, you can learn things like one, two, three. It's like a snap of a finger, you learn something. When you're an infant growing up and you become a toddler and you become a kid and you become a teenager, learning, it's just like you just absorb all this stuff and you learn so much. But as you get older, it sometimes gets more difficult to learn new things. And what I see with a lot of our people is that they're trying to learn so much so fast, and they think they have to learn so much so fast. And you don't have to learn so much so fast. Like it gets overwhelming, right? It gets overwhelming when when you're learning things too fast and you're trying to take in too much information. You wind up really hurting yourself. But learning is it's a rough process. I feel the older you get, you learn differently. I think when you're older, right? Like, what would you say? Like, how do you learn? Like, I don't even know how you learn. Like, I know how I learn by seeing and doing. What's your main way of learning things?
Dude, I have, my top three priorities. Here you go. You want to talk about repetitive? Sorry if you heard this already, but here's my top three priorities in life. The ability for me to explore, discover, and create as I wish. So that's the first way I start learning. Number two, to enjoy what I do, the things I have, and the people I spend time with. When I enjoy that, I'm able to explore and discover and find new things, going back to priority number one. And priority number three, pursuing improvement of myself, family, and others. So it's not how do I learn, it's I am here to learn. Like, all I'm here to do is learn and then pass that to somebody else who wants to learn as well. And then they may have something they can pass to me that I'm going to learn as well. But the thing about learning is, you did say, like, as we get older, it's harder to learn. And the reason it's harder to learn is because you've learned. And you think you know everything. And a lot of times people get stuck in their own ego and they think, like, I know everything. I don't need to learn anything else. But they really don't know. And all learning really is error correction. But it's your constant ability to correct errors. So that's why I have in here, I don't have learn more. I have pursuing improvement of myself, my family, and others. It's pursuing improvement. That's what learning is you're constantly improving. You're improving. Nobody's perfect. If you strive for perfection, you'll achieve excellence along the way. Okay. The idea is that you're never going to reach the end of that perfection road. It is literally impossible. Okay. So you have to realize there's always another error to correct, but that shouldn't stop you from being able to go out and do the things that you're trying to accomplish. And that's where most people get stuck. That's why it's hard for them, is because they're like, oh my God, I got to learn a new thing.
That's what makes the process of learning harder, is that
But
you're
stop.
afraid.
No, but they stop. What happens is they're trying to learn and they stop doing all the things. Like, hey man, you still have to run a business. You have to raise a family. You have to go to the gym. You have to meditate. You have to eat breakfast and everything, all the stuff, while you also learn.
Mm-hmm. It's a continuous process, right? In healthcare, we talk about continuous quality improvement or continuous process improvement, right? Everything is continuous, right? You have to put everything on a continuous spectrum. I think
I was on continuing education for my whole career with finance.
Exactly. And that's the reason why, like, when you have a license for something like finance or as a physician assistant, you have to continue to educate yourself because there's always new things coming out. There's always new things, and it's always to keep up to date on all of that stuff. But for some reason, some people are just so reluctant to the continuous learning process because they feel like, is there really more I have to learn? Like, can I just stop learning? And then they get stuck, and then that holds them back even further. And then they realize they wake up one day and they're like, "Oh shit, I'm where I was 5 years ago, and it's not where I want to be. Uh-oh, what happened?" Well, if that's the way you feel sometimes, it's like, when was the last time you learned something new? When was the last time you explored? And I love the way you said it, right? It's exploring, and it's the quest for improvement and growth and development as an individual, and that's what learning is. We get so turned off by education that we see education so much as learning, and when we're in school we never enjoy that process. It's not a really education, I think, is wasted on our youth, right? We just it's and all the years that you go to school, you're just trying to get to an end point. Like, it just provokes the hyperachiever in all of us, and we just want to get to the result to get out of school so we can go do the thing that we really want to do. And it's like, you got to do all this so you can do what you want to do. And that's the thing that people struggle with, is people, in our group, especially the other night, we were talking about it in the Q&A, and we were talking about how everybody was complaining about prospecting and the challenges of prospecting and the long game that it is. And everybody's not seeing it as, this is the thing that you have to do these things in order to do what you're meant to do. And that's what learning is about. If you want to do what you're meant to do, you still have to learn the process. Just because you're meant to do it doesn't mean you're not going to have any learning involved in it. And I think that's what people struggle with, is, when does this learning ever stop? And then when you realize it doesn't, it's continuous. It's something that you can embrace without feeling overwhelmed by all the information. Just embrace every day. You get a new piece of information, learn a new thing. That's it. Keep it simple.
Yeah. The other thing that you see many times with business owners, especially ones that have had some success, is, yeah, they learned it and they did it, but there comes a point where they want to enjoy what they did. And they're like, hey, I learned. It's like, you go to school, you graduate, you get the degree. I'm done with that. Now I can move on to the next thing. But the next thing is the byproduct of the previous thing that you did. So that's where many people live in business. It's like, I did learn the thing. I started using, I'm getting the result. Why do I have to learn anymore? Can I just do this? And can I just do this? Well, you can't. You do have to continually learn and iterate and improve. But what you do have to try to really, really, really accomplish is you have to try to stop growing. And I'll tell you, man, it probably is shocking you as a business owner to hear that I'm telling you I want you to stop growing. But I see way too many successful business owners kill their business by trying to outgrow their business. And what I mean by stop growing is, all the things you're doing right now in this moment are to grow. I've done it. We built all this stuff. We go to the events. We talk to the people. We change our systems to grow. And then as we start doing that, we're like, okay, well, how can I grow more now? The problem is that you didn't fully see out the things that you were doing that started the growth. So when I say stop growing, I don't mean in perpetuity. I mean any further than what you're doing to grow right now. Because you have to realize that first level of growth before you can grow bigger. Because you already are in a position to try to grow bigger. And if you're trying to go bigger than the bigger you're growing, that sounds like crazy talk. Even me saying it, doesn't that sound crazy?
Yeah, it sounds nuts.
But that's what
Like,
people
why?
are doing themselves. We had a client that did like 100% more than they did in the previous month. And then we're talking about, so what's up next month? I want to go 500% more. How about you just grow 100% more again? Or how about you just keep the level? You went from this to 100% more. Why don't you try to do that again? And that's what I mean by stop growing. You're having improvement, and can we sustain and maintain that improvement? Okay, there's a book behind me right here. I don't know if you could see it, probably not, but Good to Great. That book talks about consistent and sustainable growth. It doesn't talk about 10x every freaking month over what you did the prior month. So I think that is a lot of the overwhelm that people get, Tom, is that.
Well, I agree, and I think the overwhelm in that situation we're talking about is that when you first start out as a business owner, there's always, listen, you always, like you said to our client earlier today, like not to be an asshole, but when you start at zero, you're gonna grow. Like there's somewhere you're gonna go, and it's like, yeah, but I think that's the thing that most business owners get excited about, and they eventually overwhelm themselves because there's a point there, there's a plateau. Right? You can go from 0 to 1, and then you can go from 1 to 3, and then you can go from 3 to 6. But when you're going to jump and try to go from 1 to 9, it's not going to happen. And when you see that, especially in the beginning of a business, if you're having the success, you're growing very fast. It tends to be exponential. And then it plateaus into this thing, and then you panic. And then the immediate thing is to go grow again, to try to grow again instead of just sustaining, and recognizing that that plateau will raise again and you'll have an opportunity to get bigger again. But your growth was exponential for a reason. And then it's like, okay, now I got to this place. Let me figure out where I am and how to sustain this repeatedly. And we tell this to people all the time, too, that are people who set up a side hustle. Right? You wanna get to a point where you have 3 months of the same income over and over, and you're replicating that before you really want to consider quitting your day job. Because once you've built that sustainable recurrence of revenue every single month, then you're creating stabilization, right? And as you were talking, I got this really crazy visual, which is kind of funny, and for people who have done sound and podcasting before, like think of the stabilizers, right? On volume and when you're recording something, if you push the lever up too fast, you can cause some feedback that's really nasty and sounds bad. And what you try to do is you try to get everybody's voice in the perfect place so that it's a good listening tone. And there'll be times it gets louder and the times that it gets quieter. And you do it over and over. That's how your business is sometimes, but you have to seek the stabilization. You want it to be stable. And the only way to do that is to not grow. Stop growing for a minute. Even kids, you see, when as kids, my kids, your kids, I mean, look at how big your son got in so fast a time. Now he's stabilizing, and he's learning how to use the weight and the height and the growth and how to use that. And you got to learn how to use that the right way before you can grow any more and use and grow more muscle and all that. You got to learn what you have, and then you can enhance. And I think we get overwhelmed always trying to enhance because we're so afraid that if we don't keep growing, that everything's gonna die. But that's not the name of the game. It's stabilization to growth, and that's kind of where I feel it. And that's what people have to get rid of. The overwhelm is recognize it's about stabilization. It's about plateauing. It is about all that stuff, so you can figure out how to use what you've built.
And that because people are trying to outgrow their growth right now, what's happening is many of them are dealing with cash flow issues, right? So they're coming to us, and obviously my background in finance, I can educate them and talk to them about this, and they're always leaning on me for certain things. But many of the clients' conversations have gone to like, I'm not getting paid, my bills have gone up, I've sold the business, I've done the business, I just haven't collected on that yet because, some businesses have a net 30, some have a net 90, we have one client with a net 180. If you don't know what that means, that's, from the time you close to the time you collect your money, the net and X amount of days it takes. But what happens is as you're growing like this, right, you're constantly growing. So when we explain growth versus scale, growth to me in the way that I look at it doesn't mean you look this up in the dictionary and this is the definition, just the way I perceive it. Growth, in order to grow your business, you have to add resources in order to grow that top line revenue. When you're scaling your business, you're using the existing resources to grow your top line revenue. So you don't have to add new things. So when you're growing and you're adding new things, your bills are going up and your revenue is going up too. But to sustain that gap in between the two gets more and more and more difficult. And if you happen to miss one thing, or one person can't pay on time, or a job takes longer, then you're like, oh my gosh, we did $150,000 this month, but I have $190,000 in expenses. But I have people that owe me $300,000 from last month. How am I going to make payroll? And here's the problem. Many, many people will come into that position and say, all right, I'm going to borrow money, right? And the first place that most people go to is a line of credit. Here's the problem with a line of credit. Number one is, if you're not an established business, it's very difficult to get a good one. You may get one, but it might not be very favorable for your business. But the main thing is the way that we're finding people are looking at the line of credit. They're looking at this as their ability to go out and buy things or pay for salaries or do all these other things. And it's not for the existing stuff they have. It's to add the new stuff. It's to add a new piece of equipment, add a new employee, invest in the new SEO or the website or anything else. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen people's businesses go out of business because they misused revolving debt, lines of credit, credit cards, things of that nature. The intention of a line of credit in your business isn't to pay for things. It's to manage your cash flow. It's to have the ability to bridge the gap between the things that you sold and when you collect that money. Because in between there is all the work that needs to be done, which requires the electric bill to be paid and the rent to be paid and the employees to be paid and the systems to keep running. But if you don't have that money today, then how are you going to pay for all that? Well, that is what a line of credit is used for. It's to just bridge that gap. And it's not a permanent bridge. It's a bridge when things don't go according to your plan of your cash flow. Because everybody should be looking at three major statements. And I'm sure most of you who are listening to this are. But for those of you who aren't, three major statements: your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and your cash flow. You have to analyze these things just like we do for our clients in our board meetings with them. But you have to analyze these things. And then the information will tell you what decisions you made correct or incorrect. And then what next decisions you have to make. But my goodness, when you use the line of credit for the wrong purposes, not only do you realize you made the wrong decisions, but now you have to make desperate decisions going forward, giving up a piece of your business just to collect money, paying ridiculously high rates just because someone's going to loan you, telling an employee like, hey, I'm sorry, I have to lay you off, not paying yourself as the founder, which is what many of them do, forgoing your marketing, which is what brought the revenue in. These are really, really bad decisions that all stem from you making a bad decision in the first place, which is just a misuse of funds.
I think that it goes to a lot of different things that we've talked about in the past when it comes to money management and mindsets towards money. That's why it gets misused, right? People don't understand what the real purpose of a line of credit is. The other thing is, and I think it's really important to talk about, and you know this a lot better than I do, but all of these predatory lenders out there that, when you become a small business and you file for an LLC or an S corporate, and once your stuff is in the state, everybody wants to help you, right? And everybody wants to send you a couple bucks and, oh, I'm pre-qualified. Oh, I'm pre-approved for this and blah, blah, blah. And, oh, you could get $200,000. And the next thing you know, you're in this place. And we have a client that was in this place, had over $50,000 in predatory loans that they were trying to pay off. And they're impossible
she
to
had
pay off.
She had like 80,000.
Yeah, it's insane. But how do you identify the predatory lender, right? What are some of the key things that we should be telling people about identifying, what's the right place to go for help and what's the wrong place to get help?
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to look at. So, the riskier it is, the more it costs. And I don't mean risky for you. I mean risky for the company that's going to give you the money. Why is it risky? Okay, because you as a person and a business, because most of your loans will be personally guaranteed, but you as a business and a person have put yourself in a position where you're a risk to give money to. So the way to really realize if is this good or bad, first is like, would I loan money to me? Like, do I believe this? And if you're in a really shitty situation and you wouldn't loan money to yourself, then anybody who is going to loan money to you is going to say, look, I'm willing to take the risk, but you're going to pay a really high fee in order to do this. So look, the simple way is like, if you're going to borrow money, okay, for cash flow purposes, you should go to your local bank. First, start with the bank you do your banking with, and then go to your local bank. I'm on the board of a community bank. Okay, I sit on the board to that. They have 13 branches, $1 billion in assets. And yeah, we loan money to local people. We don't loan money to people in other countries or even other states. Okay. But you can go to your normal bank of like Chase and Bank of America and these as well. By the way, First Central Savings Bank, give a plug for our bank. There you go. So, you can go to the big banks, except now you're a small, tiny little person in a giant pool of people they want to give money to. Okay. So your local, your credit unions, your municipal banks, those local, savings and loans, the regional banks that are even there, they're going to be more friendly to local business owners because they have a stake in your community. Hence the name community bank. Okay. So those are where I would always start. You have to be credit worthy, meaning you need a good credit score. You have to have had established a actual business history, and that usually means 2 or 3 years of filing some sort of taxes. Doesn't mean you need to be super profitable. Just means you need to actually file those taxes. And when you go there, they're going to give you what you're worth, okay? That should not be 40%. Okay, and this is the red flag that goes up is if your loan that someone's trying to give you is higher than a normal credit card, that's probably, I'm going to put air quotes for those of you who are listening, predatory lending. What it means is they're saying that, hey, listen, you're so risky, I'm going to give you this money, but here's the problem. You got to pay it back in 1 year. You're going to pay me 40%, and I'm going to take a payment every single week. And by the way, if you miss one payment, we're going to give you a penalty and compound that penalty daily. And then all of a sudden, your $50,000 loan turned into a $300,000 loan. You can't catch up, and you go in default. That's what we mean by predatory, is they are preying on the fact that you're so risky, they'll beat you over the head with fees. And because you want to sustain your business, you'll still pay them to get out of it. Okay? Because you were desperate. Most of the time, if you're desperate, it's because you made a poor choice previously with money. Okay? You either overspent or undercollected, and you could not bridge the gap. So the least predatory loan you can do is self-funding. What you should be doing is, hopefully your little business or your big business is making some sort of a profit. You should set up your own line of credit. Tom and I have told many, many people this, is you should be looking at somewhere between 3 and 6 months of your expenses, including your own payroll. You should start saving that in your own account. So when you do need it, you have it. That doesn't mean that money is sitting there to buy the next thing. It means until you're qualified for a line of credit, you have access to capital. And then the moment that you are qualified for a traditional line of credit, then you can take that savings money and put it to work in another way. But it is so vital to have access to capital as you run your business, whether it's your own money or you're borrowing it from a traditional bank, a savings and loan bank, a predatory lender, or a credit card. Now, here's the thing. If you need to take a predatory loan and you know that you can pay it back, or you're willing to suffer the consequences, some people are in those situations. So it's not all horrible. There is a need in the marketplace, except it's usually the people who are taking it aren't really using those for what they're meant for. And they're short term. And most of those predatory loans, or those short term loans, I don't know another term for them because we just always define them that way. Most of those, you are paying an interest rate, regardless if you pay the whole thing back in a week or a year. You're paying the whole fee. But there are times when that is a necessity. There are times when we have people who have accounts receivable that people owe them $100,000. I'm like, look, just go tell them pay 80 and you'll eat the 20 because you need the cash flow, right? There's that's something that you're going to give up. So when you're looking at that, that's like a 25% interest rate, 20% interest rate, right? So predatory lending could be looked at from some other people as any lending. What you have to look at is don't put yourself in the situation where you wouldn't take something that's in the best interest of the health and financial stability of you and your business. And that's what you have to assess. If I'm in a situation where I think I might be doing something that's not best for us, that's probably a bad loan. Whether it's 10%, 40%, a traditional SBA loan, or if you think that's a bad situation to put yourself in, then don't do it.
Yeah. A lot of it comes to from, and a lot of people are so reluctant to going and getting a line of credit, and they're reluctant to borrowing any money from anywhere, and they try to do it on their own, and then they run out of cash and they wind up in a bad situation as well. And a lot of that has to go with their mindset around what debt is, right? And there's bad debt and there's healthy debt, and there's, the bad debt is stuff that doesn't make you any money. And the healthier debt is the debt that makes you money and really just bridges a gap. And that's one of the things that I would encourage people to, shift their mindset around when starting a business, and recognizing every business needs a line of credit for the covering those gaps. And it's not debt that you're incurring, it's gap coverage that you are insuring so that you can continue the operations of your business. So just if you're listening to this and you struggle with the idea of taking on debt, don't see a line of credit as debt. See it as capital that it's working for you to sustain your business, but just covering a gap. And that once that invoice gets paid or once that check comes in, you're going to be able to close the gap and have that access back again to that same money over and over. And that's really what we're trying to create for a lot of businesses, is this constant access to money when cash flow is slow because somebody didn't pay you on time, your accounts receivable went through the roof, 90 days, 180 days, whatever it is. But that's really what we have to work through and work on. So it's not debt. It's a gap. It's gap coverage. That's how I look at it.
That was a good podcast, Tom.
Yeah, it was. That was good. It was
All
good
right, everyone.
conversation.
You know the deal. Buy some stuff from us. Go check out what we're doing. Tell somebody what we do. Like, we do these podcasts. We don't sponsor them. We don't really try to, go out there and sell all of our stuff. But we really are very, very, very passionate about what we do. We love the people we get to work with. We have done a pretty outstanding job, as they would say. Tom and I are always learning and improving, though. So go to atomicbusinesscoaching.com. Check out what we're doing. Maybe there's something that you see that can help someone that you know. Have a great day.